Alright, Karina baby, our next story for the day is Speckly Hen from A Year Full of Stories. There's Speckly Hen. Speckly Hen lives in a barn. Speckly Hen lives in a barn, lays her eggs all over the farm. 1 in the meadow, 2 in the trees, 3 by the hives and the honeybees, 4 by the pond duck, 5 on a mat, 6 in the farmer's old garden hat. Where is Speckly Hen supposed to be laying her eggs? Inside the barn. But where does she lay them? Inside the meadow, the trees, the hives and honeybees, the duck pond, the mat, and the farmer's old green hat. She is laying lots of eggs. How many in total did she lay? 6 plus 5 equals 11. 11 plus 4 equals 15. Right? 15 plus 3 equals 18. 18 plus 2 equals 20. 20 plus 1 equals 21. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Speckly Hen laid 21 eggs. Go Speckly Hen. Good job. Alright, so our next story for today in our fairy tale book is Puss in Boots. I love this story. A certain miller had 3 sons, and when he died, the sole worldly goods which he bequeathed to them were his mill, his donkey, and his cat. The little legacy was very quaintly divided up, and you may be quite sure that neither notary nor authority were called in to help, for they would speedily have gobbled it all for themselves. So no government got involved with this trade, right? They didn't want the government to take up everything that the older man had that he left his 3 sons. The eldest son took the mill. The second son took the donkey. Consequently, all that remained for the youngest son was the cat, and he was not a little disappointed at receiving such a miserable portion. My brother, said he, will be able to get a decent living by joining forces. But for my part, as soon as I have eaten my cat and made a muff out of his skin, I am sure to die of hunger. Those remarks were overheard by Puss, who pretended not to have been listening, and said very somberly and seriously, there is not the least need for you to worry about your share, master. All you have to do is to give me a pouch and a pair of boots made for me so that I can walk in the woods. Now this cat has often shown himself capable of performing cunning tricks. When catching rats and mice, for example, he would hide himself among the grain and hang downward by his feet as though he were dead. Therefore his new master felt some hope of being assisted in his miserable plight. On receiving the boots which he had been asked for, Puss gladly pulled them on. Then he hung the pouch around his neck, and holding the cords that tie it in front of him with his paws, he sailed forth to a warren where rabbits abundant. Placing some bran and lettuce in the pouch, he stretched out and lay as if he were dead. His plan was to wait until some young rabbit, unlearned in worldly wisdom, should come and rummage in the pouch for the edibles he had placed there. Hardly had he laid himself down when things happened as he wished. A stupid young rabbit went into the pouch, and Master Puss, pulling the cord tight, killed him in an instant. Well satisfied with his capture, Puss departed to the king's palace. There he demanded an audience and was ushered upstairs. He entered the royal apartment and bowed profoundly to the king. "I beg you, sire," said he, "a rabbit from the warren of the master of Marquis of Carabas." Such was the title he invented for his master, which I am bidden to present to you on his behalf. "Tell your master," replied the king, "that I thank him, and I am pleased by his attention." Another time the cat hid himself in the wheat field, keeping his mouth of his pouch wide open. Two partridges ventured in, and he pulled the cord tight. He captured both of them. Off he went and presented them to the king, just as he had done with the rabbit. His Majesty was no less gratified by the brace of partridges, and handed the cat a present for himself. For 2 or 3 months Puss went on this way, every now and again talking to the king as a present from his master, some game which he had caught. There came a day when he learned that the king intended to take his daughter, who was the most beautiful princess in all the world, for an excursion along the river bank. "If you will do as I tell you," said Puss to his master, "your fortune is made. You have only to go and bathe in the river at the spot which I shall point out to you. Leave the rest to me." There is the horse that is drawn by the nice footman who has the carriage of the king, right? The so-called Marquis of Carabas had no idea what plan was afoot, but did as the cat directed. While he was bathing, the king drew near, and Puss began to cry out at the top of his voice, "Help! Help! The Marquis of Carabas is drowning!" At this shouting, the king stopped the carriage. He recognized the cat who had so often brought him gain, and bade his escort go speedily to the help of the Marquis of Carabas. While they were pulling the poor Marquis out of the river, Puss approached the carriage and explained to the king that while his master was bathing, robbers had come and taken away his clothes, though he had cried, "Stop, thief!" at the top of his voice. As a matter of fact, the rascal Puss had hidden them under a big stone. The king at once commanded the keepers of his wardrobe to go and select a suit of his finest clothes for the Marquis of Carabas. The king received the Marquis with many compliments, and as the fine clothes which the latter had just put on, I don't know why I did that, set off his good looks, for he was handsome and homely in appearance. The king's daughter found him very much to her liking. Indeed, the Marquis of Carabas had not bestowed more than 2 or 3 respectful but substantial glances upon her when she fell madly in love with him. The king invited him to enter the coach and join the party. Delighted to see his plan is successfully launched, the cat went on ahead and presently came upon some peasants who were mowing the fields. "Listen, my fellows," said he, "if you do not tell the king that the field which you are mowing belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you will be chopped up into little pieces like mincemeat." In due course the king came along and asked the mowers to whom the field on which they were and at work belonged. "It is the property of the Marquis of Carabas," they cried with one voice, for the threat from Puss had frightened them. "You have inherited a fine estate," the king remarked to Carabas. As you see for yourself, sire, replied the Marquis. Thus is the meadow which never fails to yield an abundant crop each year. Still travelers ahead, the cat came upon some harvesters. Listen, my good fellows, said he, if you do not declare that every one of these fields belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you will all be chopped up into little bites like mincemeat. The king came by in a moment later and wished to know who was the owner of the fields in sight. It is the Marquis of Carabas, cried the harvesters. At this the king was more pleased than ever with the Marquis. Proceeding to the coach, on its journey the cat made the same threats to all whom he met, and the king grew astonished at the great wealth of the Marquis of Carabas. Finally, Master Puss reached the splendid castle which belonged to the orc. He was the richest orc that had ever been known, for all the lands through which the king has passed were part of the castle's domain. The cat had taken care to find out who this orc was and what powers he possessed. He now asked for an interview, declaring that he was unwilling to pass so close to the castle without having the honor of paying his respects to the owner. The orc received him as politely as an orc can and bade him to sit down. I have been told, said Puss, that you have the power to change yourself into all kinds of animals. For example, that you can transform yourself into a lion or an elephant. That is perfectly true, said the orc curtly. And just to prove it, you shall see me turn into a lion. Puss was so frightened on seeing the lion before him that he sprang onto the roof, not without difficulty and danger, for his boots were not meant for climbing on tiles. Presently, that the orc had abandoned his transformation, Puss descended and admitted having been thoroughly frightened. I have also been told, he said, but I can scarcely believe it, that you have the further power to take the shape of even the smallest animal. For example, that you can change yourself into a rat or a mouse. I confess, to me it seems quite impossible. Impossible, cried the orc. You shall see. And in the same moment he changed himself into a mouse, which began to run about on the floor. No sooner did Puss see it than he pounced on it and ate it. Presently the king came along and noticed the orc's beautiful mansion, and desired to visit it. The king heard the rumble of the coach as it crossed the castle drawbridge, and running out to the courtyard he cried, Welcome, your majesty, to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas. What's this? Cried the king. Is this castle also yours, Marquis? Nothing could be finer than this country yard and the building which I see all about. With your permission, we will go inside and look around. The Marquis gave his hand to the young princess and followed the king as he led the way up the staircase. Entering a great hall, they found a magnificent banquet there. This had been prepared by the orc for some friends who were to pay him a visit that very day. These friends have not dared to enter when they learned that the king was there. The king was not quite as charmed with the elegant qualities of the Marquis of Carabas as his daughter, and later was completely captivated by him. Nothing the great wealth of which the Marquis was evidently possessing, and have qualified several cups of wine. The king turned to the Marquis, saying, It rests with you whether you will be my son-in-law. The Marquis bowed very low, accepting the honor which the king bestowed upon him. The very same day he married the princess. Puss became a personage of great importance and gave up hunting mice except for amusement. I love this story because it shows how someone could care so much that they actually build somebody else up. But like, he did steal the castle from the orc, and I'm pretty sure the orc probably stole the castle from somebody else, because that's what in all the books the orcs do. So it's just the way that is, right? Alright, baby cakes, let's do Lila Tove, and good night to you. Lila Tove, may your dreams come true. We sing Lila Tove, may Israel protect you throughout the night until we reach the morning light. Karina, baby, I love you and I miss you and I can't wait to see you. Honestly, I can't wait to see you. I hope that you're doing well. I pray for you every single day, every single night. Write to you, I read to you, I get you things. I miss you. I miss you. None of that makes up for anything, because I'm missing time with you. To me, quality time is huge, you know, it's huge. But I do, though. I miss you and I can't wait to see you. I love you, baby. Like Papa always used to say, Mama's the sun, Papa's my moon, and you are definitely our rainbow baby, and we love you. No matter what, we love you.